I mean, just imagine how Lando Norris feels.
My God, what a troubling week he had in the lead up to this too. Just a troubled child in general. Yes, let's do it. Let's get it. Let's just straight away
jump straight into a wellness check.
Yeah.
On Lando Norris.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Wellness
F1
Check Files.
Yes. Welcome to the freshly rebranded Wellness Check Files on one Lando Norris. I don't know his middle name. I assume it's something wildly British sounding.
Yeah.
I'm one of the hosts. My name is Cory Willis. I'm a writer, actor, improviser, and an audio engineer out here in Los Angeles, California.
And this is John Lepore, creative consultant and founder of Black Box Infinite, holding it down on the East Coast. We just came out of the Saudi Arabian or Jeddah Grand Prix weekend. Mm-hmm. Cory, you know, my reality has been like a little bit inside out lately. It took me a little while to make my way through the race and get caught up in everything. And I'm pretty sure, or I can just sort of like put a damp finger in the air and tell that there's a lot of other conversation and things spiraling out from this race that I haven't picked up the details of. And if you don't mind using this podcast as basically a form of just debriefing me on what I should already have some awareness or understanding of.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely lovely.
I'm happy to do that. Before we jump into that, I can hear the little scratching of your pen. Because it's directly underneath the microphone.
David Letterman.
Hey. I'll see if I can. I'll find like the stock window pane crashing, and then that will be inserted there. So yeah, this race there was a lot going on, a lot building up to it, and a lot of that was this pressure on Lando Norris to get it together and start performing better, start getting having less yips when it came down to those like critical moments in either the race or qualifying. And he just didn't do what he needed to do. So he's now...
No, he did not.
No longer the leading driver in the world championship. It's now his teammate, Oscar the Truth Piastri, who it does seem like the rest of the world has caught up with this concept, but like Oscar Piastri is the biggest threat to a Lando Norris title and has been. He was a threat last year and people were like, he's inconsistent. All right, man, you woke like a sleeping giant because you forced him to look at himself and go like, I need to get better at qualifying. I need to be more consistent. I need to be better on my tires. And now he showed up this year and is just better at all of that, not just from his own benchmark, but from like a team-wide perspective. So yeah, Lando really dropped the ball on this. He ended up qualifying, not even qualifying on the front row, which you can't. I mean, if you're trying to be a contender in the world championship and the person who you're fighting against and has a better spot on the grid than you is Max Verstappen, like you're putting yourself in a bad spot. So first of all, qualifying is incredible. This is one of those tracks where it really does feel, and I think this is one of the reasons why Max Verstappen is like so good at this track, is because this feels like a sim track. Like it's ridiculously high speed. It has like very specifically designed corners, DRS zones. I mean, there was like some DRS chicken that got played again this go around. Like, This is the closest there is to a video game. And Max Verstappen was trained himself on these sims and trained himself on tracks that basically existed in the virtual space that they've now made a physical thing. And this is, I mean, he crushed it. Verstappen had like a really, really good qualifying. It just, I mean, I hate giving this guy all these flowers. This is like the third week in a row here where I'm going like, yeah, Max Verstappen, like really, he set the bar pretty high and nobody else could meet it. I mean, even Oscar Piastri wasn't able to meet his challenge in qualifying. I mean, Max Verstappen beat him by 1/1000th, I believe, is what the final like deciding amount of time was. Just he's a monster at this track, and for Lando to qualify behind him basically meant that like Max was never going to let Lando by, even if Lando had gotten by Charles. He still wouldn't have let him by. So this was Lando Norris in qualifying in the third session of qualifying. And this is kind of what we were talking about, where it's Lando is being pushed by Piastri, and that's causing like the door to be left open for Max Verstappen to do what he does. Mm-hmm. And Lando even said it when they had like the post-race like breakdown. They were like, so what happened there? Or maybe it was like the post-qualifying like interviews, and he was like, I just pushed it too hard. And it's like, well, I know why you're pushing it too hard, because you don't want to have to race both of those guys, and you figured you had Oscar licked and you could just hang it out a little bit further on turn 4, which is that where Schumacher had his wreck at that like chicane? It was like massive. It was like one of the last ones that he had where the car was basically in like 2 parts. But this is a track you don't want to crash on because the walls are right there. And
walls are right there. Speeds are ridiculously high.
Yeah. And Lando biffed it. He biffed it. And
it certainly did. Yeah. I do have to say, it is, as qualifying is making it evident. I do feel like, and obviously this is due to we're in the late stages of this era of regulations.
Yeah.
And so the field is getting closer and tighter. But I feel like we can't express enough how insane it is, how close the cars are to each other. Like, we're consistently seeing laps that are like, we had one lap that was put in during midway through Q3 that was 1/1000th off from the pole.
Yeah.
And it's insane to me that we're seeing these tiny gaps. Like, we're regularly seeing the difference be in the hundredths. Or even into high thousandths.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that is like, to me, all of that is a rounding error. Like, that could just be luck. That could just be wind.
Yeah. If we were using stopwatches and not GPS transponders, those cars would tie.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to determine the.
You can't measure.
That's an amazing point.
Like,
we can only order the cars because of the technology that we have.
Yeah.
And yet,
like, order the first like 3 to 5 cars on the grid usually.
Yeah.
Like, that's bananas.
And yet the results don't feel random. They don't feel like, oh, if the wind was just blowing in a slightly different direction, then the order would be changed. It does still feel like the particular drivers with insane skill levels are the ones that are getting those hundredths or thousandths of a second edge
Yes.
over their competitors, which to me just means that like the level of competition, like the sport has evolved to a
It's
really
crazy.
insane place. I mean, to me, this is like unfathomable.
Yeah.
Years ago that you would consistently have qualifying times at the front that are just separated by hundredths.
Exactly.
You know, even when they're separated by a tenth or 2/10 of a second, that
used to
pretty
be a big
phenomenal.
deal. That used to be a really big deal.
Less than a car's length.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to, you know, these like millimeter differences, and it's wild. It's just sort of, to me, is just like, wow, what a time to be watching this sport. And I feel like it can't be emphasized enough how miraculous that is, that we're seeing this happen, and we're seeing it happen with some degree of like consistency and intent. Like, that's just wild to me.
And we've got teams like Williams who are making their way up the field and starting to get into that fight. And we had, you know, Pierre Gasly, if he and Tsunoda didn't have that wreck on, you know, the opening lap, I bet Pierre Gasly would have made it so that Hadjar had to fight for that last point a lot harder than he did, because the only reason he ended up in 10th place was because Albon and Sainz were basically creating like DRS slingshots for each other in order to stay out of the DRS range of Hadjar. So we're getting stuff like that at the tip of the midfield. And then at the back end of the grid, we have one of the funniest records to be broken in my lifetime, which is he has 75. What is it, like 75 Q1 eliminations now for Lance Stroll?
God. Yeah. Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah. So Seb and Alonso combined, I believe, and Sergio even. I think Sergio, because Sergio was in the seat opposite him when it was the tracing point. So like they have 40 combined Q1 eliminations as his teammate. He has 70 by himself. And he tried to be like, well, you know, you put the McLaren drivers in the Sauber for 10 years and see how many Q1 exits they have. And it's like, buddy, you don't get to, you're making it worse. You're making it worse. Just understand that for a time, there was like he had a little bit of wiggle room there, as like the person on the grid who was like, yeah, maybe he's got like daddy's money, but also like he's got some skills. At this point, no, you're even though you're a 10th off of Fernando Alonso, you're a 10th off of Fernando Alonso in the slowest car in the grid, which, like, relative to what we were just talking about, we've got cars that are 1,000th apart.
Yep.
Like, that's literally an order of magnitude larger of a gap between you and your teammate at the back of the grid. So I do feel a little bad when he gets dogpiled, but I don't really feel that bad now, especially with the response that he had. It was just so like, Lance, just take it on the chin and just say, you know, it sucks. He's fortunate enough where he can talk smack about that car and never get fired. Like, he could openly criticize like the aerodynamicist and would face no repercussions whatsoever because his father owns the team, but he chooses to try to like bring other drivers down. It's like, dude, just a sad situation there at Aston Martin, which is going to complicate things in the emerging driver market, which is something we got to talk about because that is now an open discussion that is apparently happening. Apparently, I guess, I don't know if it was Christian Horner, but basically someone from Red Bull was like, oh yeah, we've been holding talks with George. We've been holding like negotiations with George so that if Max goes to Mercedes, we'll give him a seat at Red Bull. It's like, damn, dude, that is, that is crazy because we in effect only have 19 seats on the grid that are available. Like, there's no way that Lance Stroll is going to lose his spot. And he's about to end up in a car that is actually could potentially be like really competitive in the right person's hands. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. One more thing from qualifying. It was infuriating to me. The direction continues to be bad with F1 TV. And now that I've like picked up on it a little bit, now I'm like starting to really get annoyed and aggravated by it. One, there's always been like a bias when it comes to Hamilton. There just has been since forever. And that is reflected in the way that he is shown in the broadcast and has been, an issue for literally his whole career. And it's just something we as fans have kind of adjusted to, where it's like, oh yeah, no, it's literally like they just don't like to show him because it's like, a weird pockmark on like British racing culture to have a brown person be the most winningest, whatever. So there's some weird resentment that exists in the media already for Hamilton. So I've been like used to that. And now that I'm seeing the direction of the broadcast be poor in other places, it's becoming glaringly obvious that they're only showing Hamilton when he's either complaining about something or makes a mistake. That is like the only time they show Lewis in the broadcast. And I hadn't really been paying attention because I've been watching his onboards. I've just been on board the whole time. Mm-hmm. But now like taking the time to like look at the broadcast and be like, wow, they really just aren't nothing he does that's positive ends up on the broadcast. And it's redoubled my focus on the way that they deal with other drivers. And one of those drivers is Alex Albon. They are broadcasting a ton of his radio transmissions that are like, yeesh, though you don't need to be putting all that out there. There's clearly, it feels like someone's got like he's got a target on his back or something with the way they release the radio. And then also he was on like a flying lap going around Jeddah, around the Qiddiya circuit, this like amazing circuit. It's the Williams. It's a car that is really, really good at high speed. Like, it's notoriously fast. It's notoriously fun to watch. And he's out on track by himself. It was in Q2. On track by himself in like one of those like little dips between runs. And they were like offsets, so the Williams went out early. They are talking about Alex and how he's like on a lap. And they're just like showing broadcast of the fans and of like the corners and the people in the garage. And then they finally cut to Albon's lap. And the camera angle they use is the helicopter. Like it was such a like, what are you doing? What you are missing. This is one car on track. You can do the thing where you literally hop camera to camera to camera to camera to camera, where you follow these cars around these circuits. This is like John, this is what we grew up on. We grew up on like watching these crazy whip pans because the camera operators are so good at their job and so good at following these cars. And like, I cannot tell you the last time I've seen one of those whip pan shots. Can you remember the last time you saw one?
I'm pretty sure they've still got them in the mix here and there, but they're
most of those shots, John, are static cameras that are pointed down into like the exit of a corner, or they're the cameras that are embedded in the curves. They're I can't, like, I've been like, now I spent the past couple of days being like, wait a second. Why aren't they doing that anymore? Why aren't they doing that really cool shot where you've got a car that's like gaining speed out of a corner on a straightaway, and then they have this really cool thing where the car whips by them and they follow them into the next corner because it's a braking zone, and like it shows how fast these cars decelerate, which is like the acceleration is going to be impossible to show. No matter, it's almost impossible to show that. Deceleration, however, and direction change, you can absolutely capture that in those medium shots. And they just haven't been using them. They may have used a few this year, but I can't remember them. And the shots they're choosing are bad. So there's another tick here against the F1 TV, like whoever's in control of that broadcast and what's coming out. Someone needs to have like a sit down with them and be like, hey, I want you to just go back and watch like a race from 5 years ago. Just go and watch a race from 5 years ago and tell me which angles you're using and which camera moves you are using that we were using 5 years ago. And unless it's a directive from F1 itself to say, like, we don't want you using the old camera styles because it's too closely identified with the way F1 was pre-Liberty Media. But I can't imagine that would be a thing that people would try to put their thumb on that scale. Yeah. Like that's... So sorry to rant so much about this, but now that I caught that, I was like, whoa. You're bad, like, in every direction at this point. Also, they're like no longer showing the interval times on the timing pylon. Did you notice that, John? Like, they just show the interval time between first and second, and then they just show the gap, like, between drivers.
It's weird. Like, I feel like no matter whatever I'm curious to see out of the scoring and timing pylon, it's showing me something different, whenever I'm just curious, or I'm like, hey, what if instead of the interval, how do I see, distance from first place right now, and whatnot. And that's when it'll show the interval. And when I'm looking for you know me and my situation. I have sympathy to some regard towards the broadcasters and how you predict and figure out, how to arrange and, present this stuff to the audience in a way that catches everything and also doesn't just like turn into like, oh, there's a spreadsheet that's taking up the left half of the screen during the broadcast, and like how you do it in a way where you could get some deep data in there, but you also don't have to explain it to the novices and whatnot. Like it's tricky. There's a lot to balance there, but yeah, no matter what, I still feel somewhat underserved by all the stuff that's on screen, and even like during this race they had a couple like instances of the like, oh, battle coming in 2 laps, and then like 2 laps later it's like, nope, they're the same distance away from each other that they were. Like nothing is nothing's changed, so it's tough. The
last thing I'll say about specifically like technical stuff with the broadcast is now they've done it a few times, and they did it in this race where I believe, I can't remember who was passing who, but there was a pass that happened, and they did like the square where it shows like how far away the car, like they kind of highlight the car like a video game. And as soon as that car got within like a few car lengths, it showed the heat map on the tires. Like it fully showed the thermovision cameras on the tire. Like that was a thing that happened. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't just whoa. And so that's one thing where I'm like, wait, okay, so you have that now. Like it doesn't need to be shown all the time, but at least when you're showing onboards of a chasing car, that's the perfect opportunity to show the heat map, the thermo map of the car in front of them.
So I don't know, probably 6 years ago.
Yeah.
They were playing with that. And to me, I mean, deeply fascinating visuals to see. And they were playing with some clever things where on the onboards, they would just have the thermal vision just on the tires. So everything looked like normal footage, except for the tires had that, kind of infrared heat vision sort of display on them. But I also had seen some clips where it'd be like, oh, we could show you everything. We could show you the temperature of everything. You could see like the gearbox on the car head getting white hot and like things like that.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine, because to me, I mean, just spectacular visualization, very exciting,
so
very
cool.
like, and obviously there's like a very nerdy and, scientific aspect to it. But I have to imagine that people that are not super hardcore into the engineering side of F1 still found that fascinating, still
Pretty cool.
found that like appealing,
Yeah.
or it still had some value to them, even if just like don't understand it, but that seems kind of cool that they're showing us that. So I can only presume, and I don't know the details about this, but I hear murmurs from time to time that there's things around some of this data and some of this telemetry that's getting better and richer and more sophisticated. There's a degree to which the teams are uncomfortable with it being available.
I can appreciate that.
And
I can
being
appreciate
out there.
that. Yeah,
and I think there's been discussions in the past around things like even like, why don't we put the driver's heart rate on screen and whatnot?
Yeah.
And I think there's a degree to which, like, well, I don't know, that might even be like a HIPAA
a violation. Yeah, it's like those are privacy
like
issues.
That,
Yeah, because it's someone literally as like the distributor of your health information on a world feed. Not great.
And so there's a degree to which, like, if that data is just popping up during the broadcast, all of a sudden now all the other teams know how vulnerable you are or aren't in a given scenario, right?
But so I can appreciate that for sure. I hadn't even really thought about that aspect because that's the 360 cameras that are mounted on the like right ahead of the driver in every car. They're like shielded and like housed to like the millimeter tolerance that the FIA will allow them to do, because they're like, yeah, those cars are like, every team has access to every camera on every other car for like protest reasons. And like, we don't want people like just having a 360 view into our garage while we're working on these cars and having discussions. Like, that can't happen. So I can't appreciate that they don't want to reveal all of that information. However, it would make tire talk a lot more tolerable for people if they had a visual representation of what these broadcasters are talking about. Like, and I think it might have even been George Russell, who they like got with this like thermocam, but he at one point was like, my tires are toast. And it's so much easier to explain like, oh yeah, like there's graining on that tire. Do you see how the heat map is purple where the graining strip is, and how the rest of the tire goes from like red to orange to yellow? Like, that is because the carcass of the tire hasn't fully heated up. And that's why at the end of these stints, the whole tire is red instead of just like bands of it. So I think there's a lot that could be offered from a broadcast and like an educational standpoint, so that we don't have a Ted Kravitz who has to like very quickly try to make his like little aside in the pit like technically proficient, or God forbid listen to David Croft and Karun talking about tire wear. Like, I don't want to listen to those guys talk about tire wear at all. So I barely want to listen to like the guys on F1 TV. Like I don't mind that they talk about tire stuff, but like I know it's not appealing to most other people. But yeah, so that was a bit of a thing that stuck in my craw. Now I've continued to drag you into this conversation for another like 20 minutes in this podcast. But anyways, the race itself, John, the race itself. Whoops. I can't move away from qualifying. So I, as I mentioned before, I do watch Lewis Hamilton's onboards. When Lewis ended his qualifying, he pulled into he pulls into the pit lane for like Parc Fermé, and just so happens to pull directly behind Yuki Tsunoda's Red Bull, and you see Yuki Tsunoda get out of it in the background.
Oh,
he
yes.
takes his headrest and he slams it back into the cockpit, and I was like, oh, there's something. This dude is pissed. And yes, he was pissed because he qualified so low. And I was like, there's no way that's the only thing that happened. There's no way that was just like unprompted by nothing. So I like went back and watched Yuki's onboards as he's pulling in, and he pulls in and goes to like undo the pin on the headrest, and like for whatever reason, like his finger slips off of it, and he does that thing that we do when we're in our cars and something pisses us off.
Yep.
He punches it. Like he just like punches it real fast and then like gets out of the car. And then once he goes to put that headrest back in, he clearly was still pissed at it. And by that, I mean, he was pissed at what's happening with him right now. Which is, we should talk about that a little bit. But
I
like
really
that,
appreciate you capturing that moment and just, posting it out there, because it was good. To me, it was, it was a story that certainly slipped through the cracks there. Yeah.
There's I threw it up on TikTok, and it's got like 200,000 views, and at that point, like there's just people who are like, leave him alone, that's not a tantrum. And I'm like, this is me just having a laugh. I am not going like, oh, look who can't take the pressure, Yuki can't take the pressure. Like I love Yuki. I want him to succeed. I also think his like fiery temper is what makes him so good and so like competitive within the sport. Like he's a phenomenal driver, and like there's no one who can imagine what kind of pressure the only Japanese driver has in this sport. Like there is no comparison. I am not Japanese. I know what kind of pressure, like what kind of cultural pressure, like that dude faces, because I can see it. And if I can see it, I can imagine what he feels. So the fact that he's finally made it to like a top tier team, and he's struggling because he hasn't been given the proper amount of time to prepare to be in this top tier team. And now he's being criticized, and people like me are kind of like poking fun. Like it sucks. It sucks. I do feel really bad for Yuki. But he's doing pretty good, all things considered. Like, much like Lewis, we've seen every second that he's been in the Red Bull. We've seen every second that he's been in that car, and it has not been long. So he can be a 10th off of Max. He can qualify 10th if he has to. He's making it out of Q2. That's what's important. Yep. He's in that top 10 starting spot, and then things kind of went sideways in the race for him. But like he could have offered help to Max if he didn't have a racing incident with Pierre. So, all right. Now we can move into the race, Johnny. Now we can actually talk about this unbelievable first turn incident. I can't believe we haven't mentioned it, because it's all anyone on social media and in like motorsport media will talk about right now was Max Verstappen, did he actually get his nose out ahead of Oscar Piastri going into the apex of that turn? And did Oscar push him off? And who's right? And did Max deserve that penalty? And should it have been a bigger penalty? And blah, blah, blah. And does Max respect Oscar? And does Oscar respect? Like, it's just turned into this crazy story. What are your thoughts on it?
I have to say, the first turn, to me, all I care about is that, like, Piastri went hard on Max Verstappen.
I love it.
Like, went cutthroat on the most cutthroat driver in the sport.
This is who we need driving against Max Verstappen in the sport.
Like, he turned it on and activated This sort of, and I mean, we've seen him make very courageous moves before.
He did another one in this, where he passed Hamilton at a spot that you don't pass people at that spot.
But that's what we've seen before, and I took this move as, and I'm not gonna make a claim over who was right or who was wrong. All I can say is whether he was technically right, Piastri was so close that he could have just as easily been in the wrong, and he could have gotten a penalty, and he just went for it. Went for it hard. He went for it ruthlessly. He went for it in what I thought was a pretty cutthroat sort of manner, and it's the only other driver that we've seen do anything like this on first turns has been Verstappen.
Yeah.
And so, I have to imagine it was humbling for Verstappen to be on the other side of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his behavior post race and his behavior in the cool down room, where he like sulked and like sat away from Charles and wouldn't really engage with them until like Oscar made a joke about like, Alonso not letting Bortoleto, fly on his plane because he almost wrecked him, which he did. Verstappen cannot be raced the way that he races people and just be a good sport about it. Like, he cannot do it. He is incapable of doing it, John. He can't, and it is going to become more and more obvious as Charles gains strength in that Ferrari. Once Lewis gets up to speed in that Ferrari, if Lando ever gets it together to really challenge him again for the rest of the season, and in these battles against Piastri, not to mention if a Pierre Gasly gets up there and starts getting to race against a Verstappen, there's no way Pierre's not going to race him completely ruthlessly, or like an Antonelli. We haven't seen Antonelli go up against Max in like a really tricky situation in a race yet. We've seen some battles, but not like where you were like, whoa. Also, Kimi has like no seat time in the Mercedes, so I can imagine once he gets more comfortable, much like Oscar has gotten more comfortable, he's going to be sending moves the same way. I mean, if not more aggressively. And he'll do it with a smile. And he'll giggle about it, like where Oscar has this beautiful dry wit. That's one of the things that, like, I don't really care about comments that much. I don't really care about posts, but someone did comment on that TikTok that I posted where they were like, well, at least he shows some emotion, unlike Piastri, who's trying to like force smiles. It's like, you just don't understand dry senses of humor. He is riotously funny. That dude is probably one of the funniest people to be in the sport since like a Kimi Räikkönen, where he's he's
1,000% has those Kimi sort of traits of,
he's perfect. Like,
he's not going to be a media darling, or this sort of person that comes off like they're overflowing with personality, and strutting through the paddock.
Yep.
But he's also like, it just comes from, you just get the sense that like, he's there to do his job. He's super focused on that.
Yeah.
He has definitely a sense of humor that we see eke out, and he's already been a couple, he's a couple memes deep at this point.
Truly.
In wonderful ways. Can you talk about, there was something that you had highlighted, a clip around Lando post race
press conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the other thing. Oh God. I love Oscar so much for this. The way that the facial expressions, he goes through like 5 different facial expressions before he gets an answer out. And you can see him going like, do I throw Lando under the bus? Yeah, I'm gonna throw. Yeah, I don't care. I'm gonna throw Lando under the bus. Who cares about Lando? Because someone asked him. I think it was like Tom Clarkson was like, so Lando says that the Red Bull clearly had the fastest car this weekend. What are your thoughts on that? And he literally like does the like head back and forth like, not really. No, and just like openly is like, nah, I'm not giving any. I'm not. No, he gets. There's no way. We clearly have the faster car. I don't know what that dude's problem is. Is like the subtext of that response. I love it so much. I love it, and like again, I wouldn't have this ire for Lando Norris. I wouldn't have like this like, ooh, I am just celebrating as much of his Schadenfreude as like I possibly can. Because for so long, every single chance he's had, and this is again me being like defensive of Lewis as like a Lewis Hamilton fan, he has like repeatedly said Lewis only has as many world titles as he does because of the car, because he was in the fastest car. That post-race conference, that answer by Oscar Piastri perfectly underlines that. Just to be like, you're in the fastest car, Lando. Why aren't you world champion? Why aren't you walking away with this like you said Lewis did when he had the fastest car? What gives? Where you at, Lando? Because it feels like you. Oh, can you not answer me because you got your foot in your fucking mouth? Like, is that the problem? It's so delightful to watch him squirm and struggle. I can't get enough of it.
Love it.
So we have this safety car. We have like a safety car incident there in the first lap of the race, and that's pretty much this track has like a 100% safety car record.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of the only circuits left. I think Baku was one, but I think it didn't. Oh no, it had a safety car at the end of the race last year for sure. It for sure had a safety car.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the year before it didn't, but this was like, it was a guaranteed safety car. Ideally, it would have happened a little bit later in the race, so we could have had some more mixing up at the front of the grid there. But Oscar drove an incredible race, start to finish. Max even said it. He's like, the dude makes like no mistakes. He makes very few mistakes. And you can even see that in when they do like the ghost car trace, when they had their pole lap. Like Verstappen's all over the road compared to Piastri. Piastri looks like that McLaren's on rails, but like Max is I mean, to be fair, Max breaks a lot later, so he has a lot more to gather up at the other end of that corner. But Oscar's so smooth going through those corners. He's so smooth. Again, the biggest mistakes that Oscar Piastri has been making since pretty much halfway through his rookie season is he accidentally dips a wheel into like a gravel trap. Those are his mistakes. Yeah. The only other mistake he's made was when it was changing conditions at his home Grand Prix and he went off. Those are the only mistakes that dude makes versus a Lando Norris who pushed it a little too hard and then literally destroyed his car and his chances to actually be on the front row in qualifying. Like, he doesn't make those mistakes. And if he didn't make them last year, he didn't make them the year before. He's certainly not going to make them this year. And I don't think he's going to start making them going forward. Like, this is another version of like a Kimi Räikkönen, like smashed together with a Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
He's so focused, and whenever he has to correct something, he does what he has to do. And he just keeps his mouth shut. And like Lewis has said, I do my talking on the track. And that's exactly what Oscar does. Like, he just does all that talking on the track. There's no pomp. There's no bullshit. No, like, we're really struggling this weekend, but we'll see what we can do. He just goes out and does his job. It's brilliant. It really is. I mean, I'm so excited to just constantly hear the Australian national anthem. Like, I'm totally fine with hearing that over and over and over again.
Yep.
Let's carve some of that space out of my brain that the Dutch national anthem occupies. I just need that. I need that back.
It's just nice. It's a fresh, fresh face, and also a it ain't gonna be boring when we get one Piastri win after another this season, because we are gonna watch it start to kind of like delaminate the McLaren team dynamic from within.
Yeah. Not to mention,
actually, I'm going to take it back. There's a scenario where that is actually very boring because it just happens all at once immediately. Lando right now feels like he's already just surrendering into this.
Yeah. And then by the summer break, we've got Valtteri Bottas in the other McLaren.
Have you seen the? I think F1 Troll has been posting the McLaren script for the season of how things are going to go, and it's like a checklist of how everything's going to go, and it's been going like beat by beat. Like Lando gets a win, is feeling confident. Then Oscar gets a win. Then Oscar takes leave in the World Drivers' Championship, and like the last bullet on the list, which we're still like 5 or 6 steps away from, is Lando looks pretty happy settling into his new role at Williams.
Yeah.
God.
It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I truly do believe that Lando Norris does deserve everything that he's getting right now, and will continue to deserve it down the road. And I really do hope that a reporter at one point does ask him that direct question of, hey, so you said that Lewis only won because he had the best car. You now have a World Constructors Championship vehicle under you and a World Championship leading, basically like a shoe-in for the World Championship as a teammate. So you clearly have the best car. So do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to say about those comments you made a few years ago? Maybe you can like revise them. I'm giving you a chance. Like, I just need that. I need that. Oh God. So good. Especially if he does what he did this past weekend, which was crashed himself out. He destroyed his own chances. Let's chat here about Ferrari. We can start with the bad. We'll start with Lewis. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, it's bad for him personally. And I guess
it's bad that it feels like we're settling into Hamilton finishes somewhere around 7th to 9th place in every Grand Prix this season.
Which he kind of was like, this is probably what the rest of the year is going to look like. This year is going to be painful, which I don't like to hear. I don't like to hear that. However, I do like to hear it because much like Oscar, he just helps to manage your expectations. Like, he's not going
just give it to me straight, Doc.
Yes. And he's doing that. And he's saying there's nothing wrong with the car. If there's something wrong with me, I need to adapt to this car. I need to adapt to this style of braking. I need to adapt to this power delivery from this engine unit. I need to adapt to the aerodynamics and the culture of the team. He's only had 5 races to do this. That's not a lot of time to change your entire way of operating after you've been operating in a completely different environment, literally using a different language that is your native language versus a language you don't know yet, and you just started taking Duolingo when you signed a contract. Like that's not reasonable to expect him to be bedded in at this point. That said, he's an 8-time world champion, so that he should, this learning curve, no matter how steep it is, he should be able to flatten it out a little bit. So the positives from this weekend for Lewis: he played an amazing team game. Whether he wanted to or not, whether he was deliberately doing it or not, he guaranteed that Charles Leclerc ended up getting third place. He guaranteed it through his DRS chicken game that he played with Lando Norris for 3 laps, which I don't understand. God, here we go back on Lando. Lando, you have to have better racecraft than that. You have to. At this stage of the game, you have to know where that DRS line is. You have to know that. And when it happens once, you can't let it happen on another lap when you are desperately trying to get past someone. And not just anyone, but literally a world champion driver, the best, most accomplished driver on the grid. You think that you're going to you think you're going to pass him by not having better racecraft? Like, you have to have better racecraft than him. It's going to be impossible, but you got to at least strive for that. And he wasted probably about 4 seconds, between 2 and 4 seconds, to get around Lewis. And same with Max. It took Max like a solid extra lap to get around Lewis. I mean, he didn't fall for the same tricks that Lando did, which is, again, get it together, Lando. But it was really, really nice to see one thing that happened very early in the weekend. Now that I'm thinking of it, this is way back in practice. It has to do with the Ferrari. Because Carlos Sainz had appendicitis last year, he didn't get to be he didn't have any seat time after that first practice. He just didn't or was it the third practice that Ollie took over?
Yeah,
I think he did. He did
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the first 2 sessions of the practice, and when he was in the Williams car, they showed a picture of the him looking at his screens, and the onboard he was looking at was him in the Ferrari. So he was looking at his laps, laps from last year, which is I love how much of a student he is. I mean, and I really do appreciate Carlos Sainz as a well-rounded driver. But okay. Lewis is struggling. How about our boy Charles Leclerc? How about the dreamboat Charles Leclerc? What a phenomenal race. This dude.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with him.
I will say it at least feels like we're a little bit removed from Scuderia Pagliacci. We're not seeing a network of clowns on pit wall ruining the team's race.
Yes.
And to me, that's also a little bit sad, because it also means Hamilton is sort of the owner of his own fate.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious what the problem is. Yeah. You can't really blame anybody else. Yeah.
But Charles is staying strong. And I think this is it's not a good dynamic for the team, but at least it's also not Lewis Hamilton has also shattered Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
And I don't think Charles Leclerc is shattering Lewis Hamilton in this context.
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm genuinely not worried about the person who's going to hold Lewis the most accountable is Lewis. Always. That's always how it's been, and it will always be how it is. The only other person he feels that he has to answer to is Fred Vasseur. And he's correct. And Fred came out after the race and was this is bullshit. All of these claims that Lewis Hamilton is no longer talented, like fully, like use that language in the press conference. Just was like, no, not the press conference, but in an interview, like he was just like, no. Everyone goes through slumps in their career. Just because he's had a few bad races doesn't mean that he's washed. Like that's not how this works. You don't come on. Look who we're talking about here, folks. Look who we're talking about. He struggled through 2 years at Mercedes where he was like miserable. I mean, just as miserable as can be. Knew that they weren't going to listen to him when he got a car again in 2023. And he was like, you didn't listen to anything I said. Okay. All right. Well, yep. I guess I'll get through the next 24 races. 23 races. And I'll go and drive for Ferrari. And I know that the regulations aren't going to change. It's not that he came to Ferrari and was like, I'm going to be driving a totally different car with totally different ground effects and air. Like he knew what he was coming to, which is why he's like, hey, the rest of this year is going to be pretty painful. I'm focusing on learning how to drive the car. I'm focusing on getting bedded in with the team and improving my style and altering my style and evolving my style. When the regs change next year, there will be active aero. There will be a little less ground effect aero. The cars will be able to accommodate that extremely late braking style that Lewis has. The only reason it works for Max is because he keeps the car with a loose end, and he's really good with that. If Max had that same like need to have the back end of the car connect with the road the way that Lewis does, then he would be struggling too. It just so happens that it worked out. So I'm looking forward to seeing Lewis just nose down, do your job, try and secure this Constructors' Championship for Ferrari. Just because if Lando starts to struggle the way that Lewis is struggling, like I put Lewis ahead of Lando in equal equipment, struggling with the same issues.
Yeah.
Like absolutely.
Yep.
Hands down. Which is probably what we're going to see post-Barcelona, John, because that new technical directive does come into effect that will basically, supposedly, eliminate this massive advantage that McLaren has. And it's going to maybe bring some parity back between Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren. So there's still a pretty good chance that Ferrari is at least challenging McLaren for this World Constructors title, if not like challenging them all the way to Abu Dhabi like they did last year. Hoping, fingers crossed, you know.
I mean, I hate to say it out loud, but I also have genuine worries that Max is going to carry this dog of a Red Bull on his back and drag it across the finish line a few more times before anyone else. And if nothing else, just really disrupt the World Championship, points race.
That's a good point, John. That's a really good point. There's a very good chance that Max just keeps his head down and he will score more points than Lewis. I mean, he will. By the end of this year, I think Lewis is what, like 6th or 7th in the Drivers' Championship, and I think Max is 2nd. Oh no, he's 3rd, right behind Lando. But Lando's only behind Oscar by like 3 points or something like that. So there's not a big gap. By this time last year, we were all going like, "Oh no, dude. Okay, so it's a foregone conclusion. Max is going to win every race this year." Like that's what we were thinking because he DNF'd in Australia last year and then pretty much won almost every other race up until the summer break. Like it was just like crazy. So I can see Max doing really, really well this year. I can see Max sticking it out and disrupting that. I don't think we're going to see the constructors disrupted that much because I don't know how much Yuki can do at this point. maybe if Yuki takes these next couple of weeks off, which is what's happening. So Yuki's going back to Milton Keynes, and he's going to be driving the Red Bull from last year. So he gets to drive. It's going to be basically like testing the previous car, the TPC program. And he's now going to get the preseason running that he should have gotten before getting into this car that's impossible to drive. So he's going to drive an arguably better version of the Red Bull, because last year's car was apparently slightly better than this year's car, according to Max. So I think Yuki's going to he may have a little bit more influence, but I don't see him necessarily disrupting. I mean, we're not even considering Mercedes. Like, George is up there too. And once Kimi comes on form, like, they're going to be basically blocking off the top 5. Like, that's it. That's our top 5, right? We've got Lando, Oscar, Max, Kimi, and George. Maybe Charles will continue to be able to get in there with Charles, with Kimi and George. But if that Mercedes continues to develop the way that it has been developing, that Mercedes might be a real competitor. I mean, George is doing pretty good. This is the only race he didn't finish on the podium in. So, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive stuff.
I mean, I guess that's just the other exciting piece of this season is, at some point, and maybe it's not even the season, maybe it takes until midway through next season, but somewhere in here, Kimi's
it's gonna happen.
Activate.
Mm-hmm. He's going to get more comfortable. His neck's going to get up to, like, it'll be twice the size that it is right now.
His poor little neck.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at pictures of Oscar Piastri from, like, this year right now, going back like 18 months, it's like, oh, geez, he's jacked. Like, his neck and traps are massive now. And Kimi's just a little guy. He's like a little baby. It's literally, his body hasn't finished growing yet. So once he finishes growing, I can imagine that he will just get, like, beefy and thick, and, like, he'll be like, like a little, like who was a little beefcake? Like a Felipe Massa. Like, he'll be like that little, I can see that happening.
little beefcake.
A little beefcake.
Felipe Massa.
Yeah, a little Brazilian beefcake. Anything else from
like a Jamaican beef patty? Is that?
Yes. But it's Brazilian and it's a cake.
little Brazilian beefcake.
There was a beautiful moment with Charles where he gets a compliment from Brian, and it was so cute, and I love it so much. It's well done, Charles. He's like, thank you, Brian. Like, it was just such a funny, like, exchange.
Yeah, the F1 TV team, like, lost their mind over that, and appropriately so. I mean, just kind of
so good.
Ridiculous that, like, and even just the typical flex of, like, oh yeah, I'm just chill here, sitting in my cubicle, by which I mean a fighter jet that's millimeters off the surface of the earth.
Yeah. Oh man. So I what I'm hoping for is we're going to see this technical directive bring these teams back into competition with each other. And by that, I mean, like, an even tighter competition with each other. Because if we're getting pole with, like, thousandths of seconds making the difference, then I can only imagine that these, like, it will be one of those, like, oh, whoever gets pole position is the first person to get the lowest time. Like, that is how this is going to be determined. Similar to what happened in, I think it was like Canada last year with George and who else? Was it George and Carlos? Maybe. But basically they got the same exact times, but one got it a little bit earlier, and that's what determined their spot on the grid. So that's what I can see happening. That's what I'm hoping will happen. I don't want to see all of a sudden the Red Bull become the fastest car again, and then it's just Max galloping off. I really can't. I can't see that. So one last thing about Max. He didn't say anything after the race. He kept all of his comments to himself. That was partially like, I'm taking my ball and going home type behavior.
Naturally.
But yeah, which is to be expected. But also, it's smart because apparently if you defame any of the race stewards, it's not just the FIA. If you defame or like call into question or diminish the reputation, whoever determines that, who knows who determines that at this point, but you would get like, I think it's like an automatic €40,000 fine, which is like, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's, $75,000 because you complained about a call by an officiant. That said, John, we watch, not as committed at this point, but we've watched American sports. We've watched European football, like proper football. You can't go at the refs. You can't talk smack to them. There are repercussions. So I don't hate that the FIA has basically been like, you don't talk smack to the stewards anymore. Like, no more talking smack about them. I actually kind of like that. All the other stuff, not on board with. All the other, like, no more personal statements, no more political beefs, no more social whatever. Like,
no swearing.
But like the no swear, like I can understand why you wouldn't want someone feel as though they are allowed to publicly criticize an official, especially when the official is just doing their job and they also don't have a literal mouthpiece to speak into.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty typical across the world of sport, is that the official also has the right to eject someone out of there if they're just getting in their face too much. Like, it's pretty sort of standard protocol, and I don't think I don't think that's infringing on anyone's like free speech necessarily. It's just like, hey, there's, they need a certain amount of latitude to do what they do.
These are unpaid human beings. Okay?
Right.
You get paid hundreds of millions of dollars to drive around in a car. They are not paid and have to pay their way to get to this race. So, like, maybe we don't let you have the last word. Maybe we let the people who are enforcing the rules have the last word, and not like the petulant child who lives in like a penthouse in Monaco. Maybe that's a good thing. I have to agree with it. I have to. Outside of that, the idea of no social commentary, no political commentary, no like personal beliefs or anything, no swearing, that's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. I get it if you want to give them a slap on the wrist, but you should not be giving them potential race bans for this. That's crazy. All right, Johnny. Where's your ragu at right now? Where are we sitting? How are we sitting on that stove?
My ragu is, I don't know. It's like it's starting to realize what kind of ragu it is.
Oh.
It's starting to like the jar of ragu for some reason isn't in the kitchen cupboard anymore. It's just like standing in front of a mirror under a spotlight that's shining down on the top of the jar as it just sort of looks at itself in the mirror, and it's like, oh, I thought I was homemade, but I'm ragu.
I'm just ragu.
I'm like ragu, not as in Italian ragu. I'm American ragu.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a tough realization because it was raised in a world where it thought it was. Thought it was just born in the old country and whatnot. But it went to the home country and said prosciutto, and they were like, "What did you just say? That's not a word." It's like, what? But that's what we say, right? And they're like, no. That's what you say. My ragu is, it walked around the back of its car and stared at its faint, dimly yellow New Jersey license plate and just sort of sighed under its own breath.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I am in the land of people who are terrified of bread and pasta, and that is where my ragu is at right now. Where it feels like I feel like I'm just out adrift in a place like there's no pasta in sight. Like the family, like I feel like they just put like cling wrap over me, and now some of like the moisture that I've let out is like starting to drip back on me a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this. This is, I mean, I'm not saying I wish they had thrown me out, but like, could you at least put me back in the jar and put me in the anything?
Yep.
I'll take Tupperware. Yeah, I'm feeling my ragu is a little bit adrift right now.
Listen, it could be worse. We're not ketchup yet, you know.
This is true. We are certainly not ketchup. My God. Let us never become ketchup, John. Let us never become ketchup.
Ketchup on pasta.
Yeah. That's we are in danger. All right. Well, Johnny, where can the folks find you out there in the world or online?
Oh, you can always track me down via my home base of blackboxinfinite.com. Cory, where can the folks find you? What are you up to these days?
You can track me down online at CoryPWillis.com. You also can do a little Cory burn or the F1 files on all the social media stuff. But if you are here in Los Angeles, if you are in LA this weekend, I am going to be performing with my team Beep Beep at the MILF Improv Comedy Festival. That is the Mock
Amazing.
Improv LA Festival here, the LA Improv Festival. So that's going to be at the Clubhouse on the 26th, and we are on the main stage. We are on at 4:45. We are one of dozens of teams that are going to be performing in this. Last year they had like taco and burger trucks set up outside with local people making local fare. We got sponsored by they got sponsored by Liquid Death last year, so we were well hydrated. So come on by, support local businesses, get yourself hydrated, and then enjoy some comedy. You can hit up the MILF Comedy Instagram for further details and an actual set lists. But yeah, come on through. Come goof around with us this weekend. I'll be out there gallivanting and watching other people and goofing around. All right. Well, we've got a little bit of downtime here, Johnny. We got a little downtime here before the Miami Grand Prix. Unlike Lewis Hamilton, I'm not going to just like hole up in some dark room and look at data. I'm going to be out there enjoying this gorgeous weather. What about you? What are your expectations over the next week? What do you think as far as like drama is going to drop? Because there's no way drama doesn't drop in these next couple of weeks. There's got to be something.
There's still nonstop drama around Maxi Taxi and where he's going to go next. I think the most recent garbage rumor that I heard was like he's just going to take off the 2026 season as a sabbatical.
A sabbatical, right? Yeah, yep.
And then come back, and we'll maybe we can dive into some of this filth next week. On the pod, but also rumors of as he's gone and then Helmut Marko is gone. Who would replace Helmut Marko? Not that there needs to be a replacement for just a random boisterous loudmouth in the paddock, in the Red Bull garage, but
they have a rebranding opportunity.
Yes, rebranding opportunity,
huge
for
rebranding
sure.
opportunity here.
And what's being floated at the moment is that it'd be Sebastian Vettel, but I think there's also just as much of a likelihood that the Saudi PIF fund brings Sebastian Vettel on to do that role at Aston Martin.
Why wouldn't you?
Whatnot.
Why the hell wouldn't you do that? Considering
or it's Seb and Fernando like tag teaming that role. Like they're like Statler and Waldorf, you know.
It would be Seb, Fernando Alonso, and Pedro De La Rosa would be the three people who are like creating the next generation of Aston Martin
they're going to set them up in the garage with like those chairs that turn around like the reality show competition sort of thing.
Yep.
And they'll just all be playing some version of Gordon Ramsay or whoever the guy who's a dick on the American Idol stuff. Simon Cowell.
Yes.
Simon Cowell, Gordon Ramsay, you know, and whatnot. And they're just all sitting there being catty little snitches.
Yep. We'll see. So, all right, folks, we will catch up with you next time.
It's a nice little aside to go out on.
You will catch up with us next time when we are elbow and knee deep in the filth and in the muck and in all of the trash right here on the F1 Files.